It looks like a teddy bear, but it is not a teddy bear. It is a bear that should not make sense in nature. A carnivore that stopped hunting. A predator that survives almost entirely on bamboo. A plant so poor in nutrition that most animals would starve on it, and yet the giant panda depends on it completely. Up to 12 to 16 hours a day is spent eating just to survive. Not thriving, surviving. Its body is built like a hunter. Sharp teeth designed for tearing flesh, strong jaws capable of crushing bone, a digestive system inherited from meat-eating ancestors. But its life is nothing like a predator's. So the question becomes unavoidable. Why would evolution do this? Why would a carnivorous bear abandon meat for one of the least efficient food sources in nature? And even more disturbing, how did it survive long enough to still exist today? Pandas are slow to reproduce. They live alone. They depend on a single plant that can disappear without warning. By every rule of survival biology, they should have gone extinct long ago, and yet they didn't. Somehow they remained, hidden in the mountains, locked inside bamboo forests, existing as a contradiction that evolution never fully resolved. So what exactly is the giant panda? A failed design, or one of nature's most unlikely survivors. Before cities learned to rise above the ground, before roads cut through mountains, before the modern world began to measure everything, there was a kingdom that never disappeared. It simply became hidden. High in the mist-covered mountains of ancient China, an untouched world still survives, wrapped in fog, carved by stone, and drowned in silence. A place where the sky feels closer than the ground, and the forests never fully reveal themselves. This is the lost kingdom of the giant panda, a land of bamboo valleys and shadowed peaks where life moves slowly, almost invisibly. The panda does not live in open plains. It does not dominate forests or hunt across wide territories. It survives in isolation, cut off in scattered mountain regions of southwestern China, separated by cliffs, rivers, and endless layers of bamboo. Each valley feels like a sealed world, a world that time forgot. Scientists call the panda a living fossil, not because it is unchanged, but because it belongs to an older version of Earth. A version where bamboo forests stretched across far greater distances, and survival followed different rules. Inside these mountains, everything feels ancient. Golden monkeys leap through frozen canopies like echoes of another age. Red pandas vanish into branches like drifting fire-colored shadows. Snow leopards move unseen above the ridges, silent as memory. And in the middle of this quiet ecosystem, the giant panda still exists, not as a dominant species, not as a fast-adapting survivor, but as a relic of deep time, a creature that once roamed far beyond these mountains, now reduced to isolated fragments of its former world. Each forest it survives in is not a kingdom anymore. It is a remnant, a broken piece of something far larger, slowly fading into the past. And yet, the panda remains, silent, isolated, endlessly tied to the bamboo that defines its existence, as if the mountain itself refused to let it disappear completely. A living echo of an ancient earth, still breathing inside the last hidden valleys of China. If you tried to design an animal from scratch, you would never design this. The giant panda is a walking contradiction. On the outside, it is unmistakably a bear, strong bones, heavy body, powerful jaws, sharp teeth built for tearing flesh. Everything about its structure says one thing: predator. But its life tells a completely different story. Because somewhere deep in its history, something changed. It stopped behaving like a hunter and started living like a herbivore. Today, nearly 99% of its diet is bamboo. Not fruit, not meat, not variety. Just bamboo. A plant so low in nutrition that most large animals would abandon it instantly. And yet, the panda depends on it completely. But here is where the paradox begins. Its body never fully adapted. Inside, the panda still carries the digestive system of a carnivore. A short, simple gut designed for meat, not fiber, no specialized chambers, no efficient plant processing system, which means most of the bamboo it eats passes through barely broken down, almost wasted. So the panda is forced into an extreme solution. It eats almost constantly, 12 hours, sometimes more, day after day, a life built around one continuous act of survival, eating. But eating is only part of the problem, because bamboo itself is not easy food. It contains toxins, compounds that can release cyanide in raw form, and yet the panda consumes it anyway. Somehow, it survives on a plant that should be harmful. Not because its body is perfect, but because it found a workaround. Inside its gut lives a hidden alliance, microbes that help break down toxins and unlock nutrients hidden inside bamboo. Not a clean solution. A fragile one, a biological compromise. And then there is the strangest adaptation of all, a bone that was never meant to be a thumb. Deep in its wrist, one enlarged bone slowly transformed over time into a pseudo-thumb. Not a real finger, not a true evolutionary redesign, just a modified bone that lets it grip bamboo like a tool. A small accident of evolution, turned into survival equipment. Without it, the panda would struggle to feed at all. So now imagine the full picture. A carnivore's body, a herbivore's diet, a broken digestive system forced to adapt, a hand that is not really a hand, and a survival strategy that looks almost impossible. Eat endlessly, to survive on the weakest food source in its world. But the paradox goes even deeper. Because all this effort only produces enough energy for a slow, almost paused existence. The panda does not run. It does not hunt. It does not waste energy. It moves like time itself has slowed down around it. Low metabolism, minimal activity, maximum conservation. Even its survival feels inefficient, yet strangely precise. And still, the biggest contradiction remains. If this design is so flawed, why didn't evolution erase it? Why did it survive at all? The answer is not that the panda is perfect. It is that it found a niche so empty, so ignored by other animals, that even a broken system could survive inside it. A creature that should not work. That somehow still does, a biological contradiction, still breathing inside the bamboo forests. For something that looks so slow, the giant panda is constantly speaking, not with sound, but with movement, with scent, with silence. Because in the hidden mountains of China, survival is not about speed or strength. It is about information. And the panda is always collecting it. Most people imagine pandas as lazy animals that barely move. But in reality, they are constantly navigating a complex invisible map of territory. A map written in smell. Every tree becomes a message board. Every rock becomes a signal. Every path becomes a record of who passed through and when. A panda will rub its scent glands against bark, leaving chemical fingerprints that tell other pandas everything they need to know. Male, female, age, readiness, territory boundaries, a silent language that stretches across kilometers of forest. And this is not random behavior. It is survival intelligence. Because pandas live alone, they avoid each other almost completely outside the brief mating window, so the forest itself becomes their communication system, a system built on absence. But scent is only part of their hidden life. When no one is watching, the panda moves differently than expected. It climbs, slowly, carefully, but confidently. Trees that look impossible to climb become temporary shelters, a place to rest, a place to escape, a place to observe. High above the ground, the panda is no longer just a heavy ground animal. It becomes something surprisingly agile. And then there is movement on the ground again, a behavior that looks almost playful, but serves a deeper purpose. Rolling, sliding down slopes, tumbling through grass, letting gravity carry its weight. It looks clumsy, but it is efficient. Energy conservation disguised as play. Every movement in a panda's life is calculated for one thing: minimum energy loss. Even social behavior follows this logic. Pandas are not social animals in the traditional sense. They do not form groups. They do not build hierarchies. They avoid contact whenever possible. But that does not mean they are unaware of each other. They are constantly tracking invisible signs in the environment. A scratch on a tree, a scent trail on a rock, a broken bamboo stem left behind. It is a world of indirect intelligence. And then something unexpected appears in their behavior: curiosity. Young pandas especially will explore, test, and investigate their environment with surprising persistence. They examine objects. They react to changes. They adapt their movement based on terrain and conditions. Not the behavior of a mindless animal, but of one that is constantly learning how to exist in a difficult world. And this is where the illusion breaks, because what looks like laziness from far away is actually a highly specialized survival system, a system built not for dominance, but for efficiency. The panda is not trying to conquer its environment. It is trying to survive inside it with the least possible cost. Hidden intelligence, silent communication, invisible territory wars. A secret life happening inside one of the quietest animals on Earth. And the more you observe it, the less simple it becomes. Everything the panda is begins with one plant, bamboo. But calling it just a plant is misleading. Because in these mountains, bamboo is not background. It is an empire. A living system that spreads across valleys, climbs mountains, and dominates entire landscapes with silent control. From a distance, bamboo forests look calm, almost peaceful. But beneath that calm is one of the most aggressive survival strategies in nature. Bamboo does not grow slowly like ordinary plants. It surges. It spreads underground through invisible networks of roots, sending up thousands of shoots that all behave like one connected organism. When conditions are right, it takes over everything. Other plants disappear. Entire forests become bamboo. And for the panda, this dominance is both a blessing and a trap. Because bamboo is also toxic. Many species contain compounds that can release cyanide when damaged. A chemical defense system designed to discourage almost every animal from eating it. But the panda learned how to live with it. Not by defeating the toxin, but by surviving around it. Selecting specific shoots, choosing certain seasons, targeting younger growth with lower toxin levels, a constant calculation happening inside what looks like mindless feeding. But the real danger of bamboo is not just poison, it is unpredictability. Because bamboo lives by a cycle unlike most plants on Earth. For years, sometimes decades, it grows silently and steadily. Then, without warning, entire regions of bamboo do something extraordinary. They all flower at once. Across vast distances, different bamboo species synchronize their life cycle and enter a mass flowering event. And when it happens, the empire collapses. The plant that once covered entire valleys begins to die, not partially, completely. After flowering, bamboo sets seed and then withers away, leaving behind empty forests where life once depended entirely on it. For a species like the panda, this is not just a change in scenery, it is a food crisis. Because the panda does not eat anything else at scale, its entire survival strategy is locked to this single plant system. One ecosystem, one food source, one dependency. And when bamboo fails, there is no backup plan, no alternative diet waiting in the forest. Just distance, isolation, hunger. This is what makes the panda's existence so fragile. It is not just living inside bamboo forests. It is living inside bamboo's life cycle, a cycle it does not control and cannot escape. Even worse, bamboo forests themselves are shrinking and fragmenting in modern times. What was once a continuous empire of green has become broken patches across mountains, isolated pockets of survival, which means even when bamboo grows, it does not always connect. And for the panda, connection is everything, because without connected forests, there is no movement, no mating routes, no genetic exchange, no future stability, just separated populations surviving in silence. So the panda's greatest ally is also its greatest vulnerability, a plant that feeds it, shapes it, limits it, and ultimately decides how long it can remain on Earth. The bamboo empire does not just support the panda, it controls it. And if the empire collapses, the panda does too. There are species that dominate the Earth, and there are species that disappear with it. And then there is the giant panda, an animal that should not have survived. Not through strength, not through speed, not through dominance, but through something far more unusual: endurance inside limitation. For millions of years, it has lived through global shifts most species never survive. Ice ages that reshaped entire continents, mountain formations that rewrote geography, climate changes that erased ecosystems without warning. And still, it remained. Not across the world, not across vast territories, but hidden, folded into the mountains of central China like a secret the planet refused to erase. Even when its habitat shrank, it adapted by shrinking with it. Even when forests broke apart, it learned to live in fragments. Even when survival became harder, it slowed itself down to match the world around it. And then humanity arrived, expanding across valleys, building roads through ancient forests, transforming landscapes that once belonged only to silence and bamboo. Yet somehow, even here, the panda did not vanish. It retreated further into the mountains, further into isolation, further into the last remaining pockets of bamboo empire. And against every prediction, it stayed alive. Not as a dominant force of nature, but as something rarer, a survivor of improbability, a species balanced on the edge of extinction that never fully fell. Today, it still exists in scattered mountain strongholds, carefully protected, carefully studied, carefully preserved. A living reminder that survival is not always about power. Sometimes it is about persistence in the smallest possible space. And when you look at it closely, really closely, it stops being just a cute animal. It becomes something older than that, something almost timeless. Because in a world built for predators, for speed, for competition, for constant change, this peaceful black and white bear refused to disappear. And that is what makes it unforgettable. For more stories hidden deep within the wild, subscribe to Beastopedia.